We tend to let our beers ferment out until there's no activity or we hit our final gravity. Should we be dumping or blowing down the cone prior to terminal? Well, I think it's a great question. I would reference you back to some stuff that I have discussed in the past about cone shaving, and even in the conversation that I had with Richard Priest. The concept of cone shaving, if you're talking about an ale ferment that's going to take off in 12 hours, is early into fermentation, so past growth phase, gently bleeding out what dead yeast and trub may have settled to the bottom of the cone. That's one element. And so that's not directly getting at what you're discussing here. But what I would do is I would always allow beers to hit terminal. When I say that, I mean that it is reading at the same gravity, at the same temperature for 2 consecutive days. And then I would look at maybe a soft crash, depending on what you're doing, in order to get some yeast to flock, or a hard crash in order to get the yeast off the bottom of it. That's the way I would approach it. So I would wait. So also let me insert this. I would give 2 days at terminal and then passing a VDK test or a diacetyl test. And the reason that you want to be doing that is that after implementing an appropriate VDK test, any diacetyl that may be present in that beer will be far more readily sensed after going through that forced diacetyl test, okay, or that diacetyl test. In general, what you can do is you can take a sample of the beer with a lid on it or a cover on it. I've done anything from a flask, an Erlenmeyer, a plastic flask, a Nalgene bottle that you can screw the top down on. And then you heat it up, get it soaking in a bath of 180-degree water, 180 F. And I think off the top of my head, that's 85 C, baby. Thank you, Sonder. I think that's one of the few Fahrenheit to metric conversions that I may know off the top of my head. And I might be wrong with that. But anyway, and give it a 15-minute rest at 180 degrees, and then take that out. I know some people chill down again, but in general, I get the top off that and sniff on that right there and taste on that right there. And that'll answer a lot of questions for you. I would also have multiple people do it if you have other people on staff in the brewery. But yeah, once you are 2 days terminal and past diacetyl, I would go ahead and crash that thing down. So say you started crashing it at the end of your work day on Monday. I would come in on Tuesday, assuming that it would be pretty close to all the way crashed, or at least significantly colder. You could start harvesting / getting yeast off the bottom of that tank at that point. That's the way I would do that. And if you're utilizing it for harvesting, I would try to have as regular of a treatment of that as possible. When I was at Cartridge, I would always harvest 2 days post crash. Okay, so that I just did 48 hours, and then I would harvest from there. I didn't have a lot as far as lab stuff going on there, so I just tried to keep my processes as consistent as possible. So that's how I would approach that, Ryan. I appreciate the question.